A maid risks her job, her safety, everything, to save a dying stranger in a blizzard. She had no idea he was the Alpha King, and he had no idea she would become his queen. Some acts of kindness change your life forever. Stacy Carrington learned this the hard way when she found a wounded wolf dying in the snow during the worst blizzard in decades. She was just a palace maid. He was a stranger bleeding out in a ditch. She risked everything to save him, her job, her reputation, her very survival. But the wounded soldier she rescued wasn't just any shifter returning from war. He was King Roven, the Alpha King himself, disguised in his wolf form. And when he woke up and saw the woman who'd sacrificed everything for him, he knew he'd found something more precious than any crown. This is there. The blizzard came without mercy. Snow fell thick and fast as Stacy Carrington trudged up the winding road toward the Alpha King's castle, a package of expensive spices weighing heavy in her arms. The head chef had insisted the king would return any day from the 6-year war, and they needed to be ready for his homecoming feast. Stacy doubted it. The war had ended only 2 months ago. Even if King Roven had left immediately, the journey took time. More likely, he was still securing borders, ensuring their enemies were truly defeated. The wind picked up, sharp enough to steal her breath. Then she heard it, a sound that cut through the howling wind, low, pained, wrong. A whimper almost lost beneath the storm. Setting her package down, Stacy pushed through the snow toward the sound. 20 paces off the road, she found him. A massive silver wolf lay crumpled in a ditch, one leg bent at an unnatural angle. Even half buried in snow, she could see his size, easily twice as large as any natural wolf. A shifter, then. Most of them had gone to fight alongside the king. "Oh no," she whispered, dropping to her knees beside him. "Can you hear me?" The wolf's eyes cracked open, pale gray, glazed with pain. Blood matted his silver fur, but it was the wound on his shoulder that made her stomach clench. The flesh around it had turned black, spreading like ink in water. Poison. The enemy's signature weapon, venom that prevented shifter healing. This soldier had traveled who knows how far, making for home, only to collapse within sight of the castle. How long had he been lying here? Stacy looked up at the darkening sky. The blizzard was hitting full force. In another hour, maybe less, anyone caught outside would freeze to death. Even a shifter. She looked back at the wolf, at those dimming gray eyes. He had spent 6 years defending her kingdom, had fought so she could live safely within these walls, had sacrificed everything, and she was supposed to leave him here to die? Absolutely not, Stacy muttered. She left the spices where they lay and bent over the wolf. He was huge, had to weigh at least what she did, maybe more. But 6 years of hauling laundry, scrubbing floors, and carrying supplies had made her stronger than she looked. Bracing her legs, she worked her arms beneath him and lifted. The wolf whimpered. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm so sorry, but we have to move." She got him across her shoulders. His weight pressed down like an avalanche. Her knees nearly buckled. The castle loomed on the hill above, impossibly far. One step, then another. The wind tore at her cloak, sent snow stinging into her face. Her legs screamed, her shoulders burned, the wolf's warm blood soaked through her dress. "I can't do this," she thought as she stumbled, nearly went down. "It's too far." But the wolf had made it so much farther, had crossed an entire kingdom, wounded and poisoned, trying to get home, had spent 6 years facing horrors she couldn't imagine. She owed him this. They all did. Stacy gritted her teeth and kept walking. She burst through the servants' entrance an eternity later, dripping snow and mud across pristine stone floors. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her hair plastered to her face. Blood, not hers, staining her dress. "Stacy!" Madame Bouer's voice could have frozen fire. The head housekeeper stood rigid, her iron gray hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her face. "How kind of you to join us. 2 hours late." The kitchen staff froze. Every eye turned toward her. "Madam Buer, I'm so sorry." Stacy's legs shook. "I found a wounded shifter on the road. He was poisoned. You had to follow explicit instructions." Buer snapped her. "He would have died." Stacy's voice cracked. "The healer said if I'd been even minutes later? How is that more important than your duties?" Buer's thin lips curved into something cruel. "These shifters fought for us, yes. But you have a job. You do it, or you don't keep it. But you're dismissed. Effective immediately." Buer gestured sharply toward the door. "I want you gone within the hour." Stacy gasped. "What? But the storm? You should have thought of that before playing hero." Buer's expression was ice. "Now get out." 6 years. Stacy had worked there for 6 years, and this was how it ended. She made it to her tiny room before the tears came. Everything she owned fit into a single bag. A spare dress, her mother's comb, a few coins. 6 years, and this was all she had. A soft knock interrupted her packing. Her friend Liv slipped through the door, round face creased with worry. "That was cruel, even for Buer," Liv whispered. "She was within her rights. I was late." "You saved a soldier's life," Liv protested. "The guards wouldn't even help you carry him. They just watched." Stacy shoved her dress into her bag. "So I should have left him to die?" "I'm not saying that." Liv's voice was gentle but firm. "But where will you go? How will you survive this storm?" "If we all just look out for ourselves," Stacy said quietly, "what's the point of any of it?" Liv sighed and pressed a bundle into Stacy's hands. "Bread and cheese. Hide with healer Kieran until the storm passes. He won't turn you away. Just pray Buer doesn't come looking." Stacy hugged her fiercely. "Thank you." "Stay alive," Liv whispered, "and stay away from Jadis. That one's Buer's spy." 10 minutes later, Stacy slipped into the storm and hurried toward the warm glow of Kieran's cottage. The healer opened the door before she could knock. "I wondered if you'd end up back here," he said kindly. "Come in, child, before you freeze." The cottage's warmth enveloped her like an embrace. "I'm sorry to impose. Madame Buer fired me." "Fired you for saving a life?" Kieran shook his head. "That woman has a heart of stone. You're welcome here as long as you need." On the examination table, the silver wolf still lay unconscious, breathing deeper now, more regular. "I could use your help," Kieran said, moving toward his herb shelves. "These old hands aren't as steady as they were. That shoulder wound needs proper cleaning before I can stitch it." "Of course." Stacy set her bag down and moved to the wash basin. At least here she could be useful. Kieran guided her through preparing a salve. Mint for cooling, comfrey for healing, golden seal to draw out poison. The familiar work settled her nerves. Stacy knelt beside the table and carefully parted the blood-matted fur around his shoulder. The blackness had receded slightly. "A good sign," Kieran said. "I'm going to clean this now," she murmured to the unconscious wolf. "It might sting." "I'm sorry." She worked slowly, carefully, cleaning away dried blood and debris. "I'm going to the cellar for supplies," Kieran said behind her. "Won't be but a moment." The door clicked shut. Stacy was alone with the wolf. Suddenly, the wolf's body went rigid beneath her touch. Stacy froze. "Easy, you're safe." Light bloomed beneath his silver fur. Not firelight or lantern glow, but something else entirely. Pale and shimmering like liquid moonlight, it rippled across his body in waves. The fur began to recede. Stacy stumbled backward, her heart hammering. What was happening? The light grew brighter. The wolf's form blurred, shifted, flowed like water, bones reshaping, limbs lengthening. The sound wasn't violent, just a soft whisper like wind through leaves. Then the light faded. And where the wolf had been, a man lay unconscious on the table. Stacy's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. A naked man. Her first instinct was to look away, but she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He was huge, tall and broad and powerfully built. His bronze skin was covered in scars, so many scars crisscrossing his chest, his arms, his abdomen like a map of violence. A warrior, someone who'd seen horrors she couldn't imagine. His face was all sharp angles, strong jaw, high cheekbones, blade of a nose. Dark hair fell across his forehead. A scar cut through his left eyebrow. Even unconscious, even battered and poisoned, he was dangerous. That was the word. Heat flooded her face as she realized where her eyes had drifted. She jerked her gaze back to his face, cheeks burning. She should cover him, should grab the blanket and preserve his modesty. But even as she draped it over his lower body, her eyes kept returning to him, to the broad span of his shoulders, the muscled planes of his chest, the way his throat worked as he swallowed unconsciously. Something twisted low in her belly, unfamiliar and frightening and thrilling all at once. Who was he? The storm raged for 3 days. Stacy barely left his side. Kieran's hands trembled too much for delicate work, so Stacy tended the stranger. She learned the landscape of his body. Every scar, every ridge of muscle, every place where old injuries had healed poorly. Fever burned through him in waves. She kept cool cloths on his forehead, checking constantly. Her hands moved over his skin countless times, professional touches, medicinal. She tried not to stare, tried and failed. It helps to talk to them, Kieran had said, gives them something to hold on to. So Stacy talked. She told him about her childhood, about losing her parents, about 6 years of invisible servitude. "The kingdom waited so long for you soldiers to come home," she said softly, wringing out a cloth. 6 years is a lifetime. She smoothed the cool cloth across his forehead, her fingers brushing back the dark hair. His hair was softer than she'd expected. He stirred beneath her touch, a furrow appearing between his brows. "Shh," Stacy murmured, her hand moving to his shoulder. "You're safe. You're healing." The tension eased slightly at her voice. "We heard stories about the battles," she continued, "about how the shifters turned the tide, about how brave you all were." Her hand remained on his shoulder. "You're a hero. Thank you for everything you sacrificed." Something shifted in his face. Harsh lines softening, lips parting slightly, almost like a smile. He relaxed under her hands, sinking deeper into sleep. Even delirious with fever, he'd heard her. The second night was worse. The fever spiked, and he became restless, thrashing weakly, muttering words she couldn't understand. "No," he mumbled, head turning side to side. "Can't. Have to." "You're safe," Stacy said, pressing a cool cloth to his chest. His skin was burning. "The war is over. You're home." His hand shot out, grabbing at nothing. Without thinking, Stacy caught his hand in hers. His fingers closed around hers immediately, too tight, almost painful, desperate, like she was the only solid thing in his world. "I'm here," she said softly, her other hand cupping his jaw. His stubble was rough against her palm. "You're not alone. I'm right here." She kept talking, told him about the snow outside, about how peaceful the cottage was, about how the poison was leaving his body. Slowly, his breathing calmed. His grip loosened, though he didn't let go. "That's it," she whispered. "Just rest. I'm not going anywhere." His thumb moved against her palm just once, barely conscious, but it was there. Stacy stayed like that for hours, her hand in his, stroking his hair, murmuring reassurances whenever he grew restless. By dawn, her back ached and her arm was numb, but he was sleeping peacefully, his hand still loosely holding hers. She didn't pull away. On the third day, he surfaced briefly. Stacy was changing his bandages when his eyes fluttered open, unfocused, glazed, but open. "Where?" His voice was barely a rasp. "Healer's cottage. You're safe." She kept her movements gentle. "You were poisoned. Do you remember?" His brow furrowed. "You saved me!" His hand moved, trembling and weak, reaching for her. Stacy caught it without thinking, pressing it between both of hers. "I'm here. You're going to be all right." Just before he slipped back under, his fingers squeezed hers, so faint she almost missed it. By the fourth morning, everything changed. The fever had broken. He would live. Stacy woke to the feeling of being watched. She'd fallen asleep slumped in her chair. She lifted her head and found his gray eyes clear and alert, watching her. "You're awake!" she exclaimed. "I am," he said, voice still rough. "Who are you?" "Stacy. Stacy Carrington. I found you 4 days ago on the road. You were wounded, so I brought you here." He studied her with something like wonder. "You didn't have to do that." "Of course I did," Stacy protested. "You're a soldier. You spent 6 years protecting this kingdom. The least we can do is help when you need it." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, admiration. "Thank you," he said quietly. Stacy was suddenly acutely aware that he was still shirtless, that the blanket had slipped to his waist. She could see every ridge of muscle, every scar. "You must be hungry," she managed. "I can make broth." "Stacy," he interrupted. Her name on his lips made her look back. "Do I make you nervous?" "Of course not," she said, though her cheeks burned. "I've been tending your wounds for days. I'm perfectly comfortable." His lips curved into a devastating smile. "You're blushing." "I am not. Has anyone ever told you that you're rather endearing when you're flustered?" Before Stacy could respond, the door burst open. Jadis stood there, eyes landing on Stacy with false shock. "You're still here?" Jadis gasped, pretty face twisted with malice. "Madame Buer fired you." "Jadis, I can explain," Stacy started. "Trespassing after being dismissed is serious, Stacy." Jadis crossed her arms. "I should fetch the guards." "Wait, please," but Jadis was already gone. "What just happened?" the soldier asked, voice hard now. "You were fired?" Stacy turned back. "It's nothing. Madame Buer, the head housekeeper, I'll find another job somewhere." "You lost your job," he repeated, sitting up further. "Because you helped me." "It was worth it," Stacy said simply. He stared at her like she'd grown a second head. His hand shot out, catching hers. "You lost everything for a stranger." "You're not a stranger. You're a soldier who fought for us." Something deeper flickered in his expression. "At least let me properly thank you." They were close now, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his skin. Before she could think, before she could talk herself out of it, Stacy leaned forward and kissed him. She felt him go still with surprise, felt his sharp intake of breath. Her hand had somehow found his bare shoulder, and the heat of his skin made her dizzy. This was her first real kiss, intimate, deliberate, wanted. It lasted only a heartbeat, maybe 2. When she pulled back, her face was burning. "There," she said breathlessly, "now I've been properly thanked." A slow smile spread across his face, warm, genuine, devastating. "I have to go," Stacy said quickly, already moving toward the door. "But hopefully you're well enough to come find me soon." She fled into the morning sunlight, her lips still tingling. She'd made it perhaps 20 paces when a sharp voice stopped her cold. "Still here, I see." Stacy froze. Madame Buer stood near the main path. Jadis beside her with a satisfied smirk. 2 guards flanked them. "Madame Boer, please, I can explain." "Trespassing after dismissal is a serious offense," Boer announced coldly. "Guards, escort her off immediately." A guard grabbed Stacy's arm roughly. "I just needed shelter from the storm." "You were told to leave." Boer's eyes glittered. "Perhaps a night in the cells will teach you about following orders." "Stop," a voice commanded. Everyone turned. The soldier stood in the cottage doorway, dressed now, standing straight and tall, radiating absolute authority. "Release her. Now," he ordered, voice quiet but carrying power. The guard loosened his grip. "And who are you to give orders?" Boer demanded, though uncertainty flickered across her face. The soldier stepped into full sunlight. One of the guards, older with silver in his beard, went completely still. Then he dropped to his knees. "Your Majesty," he breathed.